In 1993, the UN supervised free and fair election in Cambodia with UN peacekeepers spread all over the country brought about an incredible transformation. The election was not without some issues. I was in Washington, D.C., in the State Department, when I was urgently contacted by individuals from the Voice of America. And they said, "You have to come over here. In your position as Deputy Assistant Secretary, you need to do an interview because there are stories all over Cambodia now about how satellites are watching how people are going to vote, and that the Cambodian People's Party is going to know." And these stories were intimidating people. And so I rushed over to the VOA office in Washington, D.C., and here I am doing an interview, being translated into Khmer as I do it, saying, "There's no truth to that. There are no satellites. No one is able to tell how you're voting when you go into the voting booth." I'm told later that my interview had an impact, had an effect. Always hard to tell such things, but the election produced results where the Cambodian People's Party finished second, much to their chagrin and surprise. Fun Sin Pek finished first. But what was important was that a new political coalition, a compromise was in place, and power sharing would occur. And when it was difficult about how to divide up power in the new government, King Sihanouk stepped in and suggested, well, let's have two prime ministers. Prince Ranariddh, his son, could be the first prime minister because he got the most votes, his party got the most votes. And Hun Sen, the leader of the Cambodian People's Party, the Communist Party, would be the second prime minister. I don't know who had heard of having two prime ministers, but it worked in Cambodia. And these different sides got along, and Prince Ranariddh and Hun Sen, who had been in a military struggle for close to 10 years, now we're going up. They show up in the U.S. They show up at the UN. Secretary of State holds events. They come, they reopen the Cambodian embassy in the United States. And the Cambodian seat at the UN is now occupied by representatives of this elected government. It's amazing. But what I would come to learn is that compromise was not something that was learned in Cambodia as you grew up. Cambodian politics were not, as politics in the United States had been for most of our history, about compromising to get along, about giving, about bringing different sides together by each giving some and getting some. Cambodia was more about king of the hill, that each Cambodian leader wanted to be on top, wanted to be the toughest, most significant, most important, most powerful leader. King Sihanouk wanted that. He wanted to go back to the, in his view, the good old days when he ruled by decree and had all the power in the country. Prince Ranariddh, who led this royalist, non-communist group, he wanted to be on top. He had won the most votes in the election. But within his movement, there was another democratic advocate named Sam Rainsy, who was seen by many, including many in Washington, as sort of a hero of democracy, not really attuned to the royalists. wanted to be elected Democrat. And then Hun Sen and his authoritarian Communist Party, but was showing that they were willing to share power. They were willing to go along as the junior member in the coalition. But what would unfold over the next 3 or 4 years and would bring the downfall of all the international community had built up, had put in place, had brought peace to Cambodia, this tragic country that had gone through such misery because these political leaders kept trying to say, who's on top? Can we reach up and pull the feet out from under that person, bring them down, and then scramble to be on top and be the winner, the one single person in power? Was the tragedy of Cambodian politics and the tragedy of all we had invested that would become undone, including during the time while I was there as ambassador. It's a sad story of great promise, great sacrifice, great achievement by the international community, giving Cambodia this choice, and then being undone by the venality and the urge for individual power on the part of Cambodian leaders who never seemed to be able to compromise.